And we are back. We are live. Welcome back. Welcome if you are new. This morning, I woke up and I got out of bed. And I don't know why I was thinking this, but maybe yesterday I was a little bit frustrated with something and some information I've been exposed to. Or I work all day with my hands, and I listen on my phone. I listen to YouTube videos. I just listen. I don't watch. Sometimes I'll listen to audiobooks, but more often I'll listen to political commentary or topics in engineering and artificial intelligence and climate change and related topics to that, global heating. And yesterday I was just feeling really frustrated with the whole thing. And this morning I pretty much deleted all my subscriptions on YouTube. And I don't participate in any other forms of social media, period. Zero, none. I didn't do Twitter. I don't do X. Never did Facebook, Reddit, any of the alternatives to these things. Nothing. Never did. Never. Not once in my entire career. And I'm a technologist. I could have written a lot of this software. I wrote a lot of software for use on the internet, and I could have even participated in these companies. And I've never done social media at all. And if I leave comments on YouTube, YouTube videos, which I frequently do, I generally don't respond back to any responses. I am seriously detached. And this morning I got up, and it was like the first thing that hit my mind when I got up was moving around. Unsub all my subscriptions on YouTube. I kept a few people I genuinely respect. Not only just their information and their opinions or their production values or whatever, but I just feel like they're voices that I don't mind having in my life, that I don't consider them to be misinformation or pollution or anything else. And also they don't put out a lot of videos. So that's me. I absorb a lot of information. I do. I really do. I absorb an amazing amount of information on a huge set of topics. And today I canceled, unsubbed most of my subscriptions on YouTube. So where is my headspace? Why would I do that? Why would I start cutting off? Because that's really what I'm doing. And I've been doing that for a number of years. In particular, since I retired from technology work, I've been sort of cutting off from the world. And today I just made another step in that direction. My wife and I were having a discussion about something that kind of put me over the edge. And this will sound like a trivial thing, but for me, it's not. Why is it not? Let me explain what happened, and then maybe I can explain why it's actually really important to me, the topic we were discussing this morning. The observation is this, and it's related to something called the trolley problem, which you can look up. The trolley problem, trolley effect, trolley problem. The trolley problem is a commonly referred to example of moral dilemmas or ethical dilemmas, that you have two choices and they're both bad. They're both bad. And you have to choose. And they always frame it as two choices. And I think what I've been dealing with recently is that there's this thing called a choice in the trolley problem, where you have to decide to act. You have to decide to do something. It has to do with the track that the trolley is going to take. You can go straight or you can veer off onto a side track. And either way, it's bad. Bad things happen either way. But there's a choice. You can. They always state it in the following way. You can choose to go ahead straight on the track you're on, or you can choose to pull a lever and go on a side track. And both routes are bad. So you can kind of see the dilemma here. But what troubles me about this is that these choices are not choices. And this is important because it applies to what's happening to us with our response to the scientific evidence for global heating. Okay. We are at a juncture right now. It's very clear to me. I'm a scientist and an engineer. I've been looking at this for 20 years now. And I am not the only one who is a scientist who feels that we are in deep trouble. Very, very bad. We're in a very bad place right now. Our species, our planet, the other occupants of this planet that we share this planet with, we are in a very bad place. There isn't language to properly express how bad a place we're in right now. I could adapt some language, okay, to explain how bad this space is that we are in. Okay. I could adapt the language like we are fucking doomed. Okay. Does that work? Because we are. I'm not saying that because I'm frustrated or because I'm emotional. We're doomed. We are. Now we're just doomed. If we were doomed, that would be one thing. We are fucking doomed. All right. Most of us are going to die. Does that work for you? Yeah, most of us on this planet currently today are going to die. I don't mean 5 generations from now when all of us today are dead of natural causes. I mean, most of us alive today are going to die because of what's happening on this planet. We are fucking doomed. Okay? Did that hit you? Because that's the truth. We are fucking doomed at this point. I wasn't thinking that a year ago. I was thinking, well, we've got some real challenges here. We have to find a way to break the impasse in government and how to get the science new information out there for the right people to absorb. And I was thinking all these things. And then we went through another round of IPCC reports, and that was like troubling. And then we've had a couple of COPs 27 and 28. It's like, that doesn't look good. And at this point, I have seen the light. I mean, I used to think that there was a way through this dark tunnel. Okay. And now I have seen the light, and the light is an onrushing train. It is not the light at the end of the tunnel. It is the light of an onrushing train. And we are fucking doomed. Okay. I don't know how else to say it. We are I am standing on the prow of the Titanic, and the ice, and it's dark and the starlit night, and I'm looking out and I see the iceberg glittering in the starlight, and it's right there. It's right there. And I'm like, wow, okay, there it is. It's right there. That's the iceberg. That we're heading right for it. You can't turn the ship. I couldn't even get the captain. I couldn't even get the helmsman's attention. And who am I? I'm just a passenger, and I'm sitting here at the prow. I'm looking. That's the iceberg. Wow, it's true what they say. 3/4 of it is underwater, and there it is, right in front of the ship. Well, I guess we're fucking doomed. And the only hope is that after we hit the iceberg, we don't sink. But we all know what happened with the Titanic, right? So sinking is definitely a thing when you hit an iceberg. And so I'm sitting here on the prow of the Titanic, and I'm seeing this iceberg right off the bow. Well, that's not good. And yeah, we're doomed. We're going to hit that iceberg. How quickly does the ship sink? How much water does it take in? How many people get off? How many people don't? How many people survive? How many people have a bad day? I don't know. But we're hitting that iceberg, and this is going to suck, okay? And we're not going to make it to New York Harbor. That's a thing. We're not going to make it to our destination. And it's possible that the destination for the ship is the bottom of the North Atlantic. And it's possible that the destination for me personally is the bottom of the North Atlantic. Yeah, that's how it feels. And I'm an engineer, and I'm a scientist, and I know what's going down. I know what's going down. A few months ago, I was seeing some data coming in over the transom, and I was thinking, wow, something just broke. We're fucked. And Gavin Schmidt at NASA Goddard climate scientist, just came out a couple of days ago with a video where he says, "Oh yeah, we're kind of fucked." And Jason Box, I don't know, 6-8 years ago, was on the top of the Greenland ice shield, and he was saying, "Yeah, we're pretty much fucked." Okay, and so yeah, so that's the answer. That's the answer. And for years now, I've been thinking, well, if we get more climate data out there and we get more people on board and we explain it carefully using little words, because it's got science, it's complicated. There's scary numbers and scary charts and all these lines and all these dots and all these things connecting, and people get freaked out when they see complication. They want to see something simple, give it to me like Dr. Seuss would. And so, we've tried that too, and nothing seems to work. Right. And yet all around me, people who are as tuned into this as I am are reflecting my own anxiety about this. And they are saying, wow, we're pretty much fucked. That's what they're saying. That's what they're saying. Now, maybe they're not saying that on MSNBC. Maybe they're not saying that on Fox News, because they don't get invited to these venues. They say it other ways. And James Hansen just recently said it in a series of peer-reviewed papers that he submitted. Basically saying, in so many words, so many words, the words are in there. Yeah, we're basically fucked. Okay. All right. Well, we'll just go with that. Let's go with that. And so I've been sort of preparing myself for how I'm going to feel about it when it finally sinks in. And so I guess this morning it finally sank in. And, I canceled my YouTube subscriptions. It's a tiny thing, but it's really the only connection I kind of have left with your world. I have an inner world, which is very much alive and vibrant. And my inner world pleases me every day, all the time. But, your world is becoming bothersome to me because you people refuse to choose. The trolley problem is that you're the trolley operator and you can control a switch. The switch switches the tracks, and ahead of you is something on the tracks, and you're inclined to avoid that. So you go to jump on the sidetrack, and you have, but on the sidetrack, there's also something that looks really bad. And so you can either pull the lever and you can take the sidetrack and hit the bad thing over there, or you could just go straight ahead and hit the bad thing that's on the tracks in front of you, like that. Okay. And so, and then they qualify that as, well, you have two choices. What are you going to choose? It's a moral dilemma, yada, yada. But for most people, it's not a moral dilemma at all, because there's really only one choice. There's one choice. And we're dealing with global climate change and global heating. There's really one choice. The other is a non-choice. It's the non-choice option. And we can call it business as usual. We can call it full steam ahead. We can call it, hope and a prayer, whatever you want to call it. The non-choice, the bystander effect, where you avert your eyes and you're looking like this and you're just not acknowledging that there's a bad thing coming your way. You're just looking every direction, you're looking at everything else, and you're just not looking at that thing ahead of you. You ignore it. Okay, that's a non-choice. You choose not to engage. Okay? You don't even choose not to engage. You don't choose not to engage. I see nothing, I hear nothing. And if you see nothing and you hear nothing, then there's no choice to be made. It's not even failing to choose. It's a non-choice. It is the opposite of being in choice space and choosing. It's the opposite of being in a place where you can evaluate A and evaluate B and stroke your beard and pick one. Okay. That's choosing. What people are doing with regards to global heating and climate change is they're just not being in that space at all. They're not in that space. They're like this. They're not in the choosing space. There is no A, there is no B. There's just not. And so that's the trolley problem effect, is that you are on the trolley, you could grab the lever, you could go onto the side ramp. But if you do that, that's a choice. You just made a choice. And whatever happens when you pull that lever, when you grab the lever with your and you pull it. You choose to do that. That's an action on your part. You chose to touch the lever. You chose to pull the lever. You chose to take the side. When you do that, then anything that happens on that sidetrack is your fault because you chose. Anything that happens is your choice. And you chose that. You chose to run over those people. You chose to destroy that whatever that was that's on the tracks, run into a bus full of orphans, whatever. You chose that. And you can maybe justify your choice. Well, if I'd gone ahead, it's even worse. The bridge is down and the whole trolley goes over the bridge and down into the canyon. And I've got 40 passengers. Then most of them, all of them are going to die. And I can't go straight. I had to take my chance. But you chose that, and you chose to run in that bus full of orphans. How could you possibly? We have laws and we have expectations, and how could you make that choice? And so you try to explain yourself, but the problem is not that it's a moral dilemma. That's how the trolley problem is offered. It's offered as a moral dilemma. So what do you do? Okay, but what has been discovered through testing is that people just don't choose. And you can say, oh, well, that's a choice. You chose to go straight ahead. You chose to drive the trolley off the bus into the canyon and kill everybody. No, I didn't choose that. Well, you did because you chose not to pull the lever. No, the lever would be a choice. I have to grab the lever and move the lever and watch myself steering onto the thing and watch myself running into the bus. That's my choice. I didn't do it. I didn't choose to take the sidetrack. I just didn't do anything. I just disengaged like this. I don't see that the bridge is out. I don't see that there's a problem on the track ahead. And because I don't see there's a problem, I don't have to have this terrible moral dilemma to choose the lever or not. That's the choice, to choose the lever or not. I don't see a problem. There's no problem. Someone says there's a problem. I don't think there's a problem. I don't believe it. It's a beautiful day. Yeah, look at those flowers over there. Look over here. See all those dogs running in that field with those kids. Isn't that beautiful? Yep. Blue sky. I don't see anything. You just don't see it. You don't see it. It's a non-choice. You can't choose if you don't comprehend it. Now, I did a video, 2 videos actually, a couple days back on It's Time to Choose, which I guess, having done those videos, has gotten my gears turning. Okay. The gears are turning. I had to make those videos on triage and the necessity of choosing during a disaster. It got the gears turning. And I made a point during those videos. I think I made in both videos. It's a 2-part video. The first part got screwed up, but it turns out it should have been a 2-part video anyway. And I guess today I'm kind of doing a 3-part on the same thing. All right. This is part 3 of the same topic, I guess. I didn't really realize at the time that that's what I was doing, but this is sort of like part 3. So I made a big deal about the necessity during a massive disaster of triage, that you have to choose. And when hundreds of wounded soldiers come in from the battlefield, and you've got a small surgical ward, and you've got 2 or 3 surgical suites, and you've got a small ICU, and you've only got so much medicine and so much staff, and 300 people are coming in. You just have to choose. And it sounds terrible and unethical and whatever, but you just have to. You just have to do this. And so they set up on battlefields in particular, but also during natural disasters. The first thing they set up is a triage unit, so that someone who's been trained to make difficult decisions can make the difficult decisions. And then that person leaves. They leave. They go home. And maybe they have a bunch of drinks after they're done, whatever they have to do. Counseling, it's post-traumatic stress disorder. They have to go deal with the terrible time they had making these choices. But that's their job. They're doing triage. They're making choices. They're making choices. They're trained to choose. They know what to look for. And when you're dealing with a disaster and you have all these victims and all these injured and all these dead, okay? And some of them look more dead than others, but they're all on their way to dying. So you have to choose who you're going to care for. Who are you going to set aside? You set aside the ones that would like to be cared for, but they don't need to be cared for right this second. They'll be okay. 12 hours later, we can get to them. And then there's the ones that are dead and dying. Okay, put them over here because, we'll give them, painkillers, morphine, whatever, and we'll, watch them. But we're not going to devote staff or medical technology to, to keeping them alive. If 10 hours later it's still alive, well, then, okay, maybe we misjudged that one. But and then we're going to pick this bunch in the middle who probably are going to die, but not if they receive immediate care. They can be saved. And so that's triage. And what you're trying to do is save the most number of people you can. You're trying to save the most number of people you can. That's what you're trying to do. You're not trying to be correct. You're not trying to be perfect. Perfect is the enemy of the good. You're just trying to be good. You want to save as many people as you can. That's what you're trying to do. That's why you do triage. I made 2 videos about how you have to choose. You have to choose. Choose. Jump. Jump, monkey. Time to choose. And we're shit at that. We're asking the entire human species to choose to do something about global heating. What? If these... No, they're not going to do that. They're not, as far as they're concerned, they're bystanders. Well, they're not bystanders. They can't just, be in their social media, going down the sidewalks, tweeting and twerking, whatever else they're doing, and just walking by while someone is being beat down in the gutter, right? That's the bystander effect. I will just do this over here, and I won't see what's going on over there. Didn't see that, and now I'm past it, and now I can live my daily life. Okay, that's the non-choice choice. That is so far removed from choosing. To just not acknowledge it is so far away from choosing to do something that it's a non-choice. And what people, 8,000 million people. Well, it's not really 8,000 million people because most of the people on this planet are completely and wholly innocent of any involvement in this shit show. I'm not sure it's even 800 million. I'm not sure it's even 10% of the population of the earth is involved in this shit show we call global heating. Maybe it's 80,000 people, 80 million people. Maybe there's 80 million people. Yeah, that sounds about right. 1% of the human population, 80 million people, is causing this shit show we're calling global heating and climate change. 80 million people. And they're every single one of them is choosing not to notice that there's a problem. That's it. That's all they're doing. And because they're, I don't want to call it weakness because it's understandable. It's relatable. I get it. I don't want to accuse people of being weak. But maybe when you're in a disaster, it is weakness to just walk by. When you're in a disaster, maybe you're expected to engage. Maybe we expect more of each other during a disaster. Is that reasonable? I'm not sure that's reasonable. I feel like it should be. I feel like we should be able to expect more of each other during a disaster. Whatever, a hurricane, an earthquake, fires burning down all the houses. It seems reasonable to expect people to engage, not to walk by tweeting and twerking. Okay, eyes up here, didn't see, didn't know, don't care. I expect people to engage. Now they may choose, having engaged, having looked at it and said, well, that is a collapsed building. This earthquake collapsed that building, and I hear voices in there. And so at that point, you've engaged, and then you choose to do nothing. It's not human scale. There's nothing you can do. You're going to need heavy equipment. You can choose to do nothing. You can choose to just go walk by and maybe find something else you can do. Help someone with a cut or help carry someone to an ambulance or something like that. So you choose not to engage with that. You choose to go do something else, or you choose to do nothing. You choose to sit on the sidewalk and cry and have a nervous breakdown. You choose to do that. Or maybe you choose to do something else, but you have to first engage with the disaster, and then we can ask if you are choosing or not. But the simplest thing for most people is to simply not engage. Do you see? Am I making my point here? Because people cannot engage with things. Here in the U.S., there are at any given time, 90% of the population is not engaged with any of a crushing load of societal issues, just choosing not to engage. It's not on their radar. And they don't even choose not to do something. Choosing to not do something about homelessness or economic inequality, or the problems with education, or the problems with our healthcare system, or the problems with urban design, or the problems with gun violence. To choose to do something or not do something, or to have an opinion or not have an opinion, or whatever, you have to engage with the topic first. You have to recognize that the topic is there. It is a problem, and now you're engaged with it, and then you can choose either to not engage, walk away, or take one stand or another, or I don't care, or I don't, it's not my problem. It's an SCP, someone else's problem. Those are all choices. And you can say some people are more moral than others when confronted with a problem, and some people are less moral. And you can say this is a more moral response to homelessness or drug abuse, and this is an amoral response. But at least their responses, their choices. People choose to be this way or that way. But there's a lot of people in the United States of America, which is where I live, therefore I have some ability to talk about this. There are a lot of people in my country that just don't engage at all. It's the non-choice choice. And you don't have to choose the non-choice choice. That's just business as usual. You just don't engage. It's as if homelessness, it doesn't exist. And you could even tell yourself, well, it's a hoax, or, well, it's, personal choices. People just make bad life choices. It's as if gun violence in schools doesn't exist. It's a hoax. It's an agenda. It's not real. And that's non-engaging. And you can say, well, that's choosing to not engage. No, it's not. It's just not engaging. And it's a lot easier mentally and morally. Watch this. It's a lot easier morally to not engage with difficult topics. Now, in engineering, we call very difficult problems wicked problems. Another term for that is not quite as evocative, is a dilemma. A dilemma is not the same as a problem. A problem has a solution. We state problems, and then we find a solution. We think there is a problem. There's a set of solutions. And we state the problem clearly, and we look at the solution set. We can pick one of the solutions. Okay, we'll go this way. Or we'll go that way. A dilemma, or a wicked problem, you have the stated problem, and then all the solutions are just as bad or worse than the original stated problem. And that's what makes it a wicked problem. That's what makes it a dilemma. And when people are confronted with dilemmas, the most self-preserving approach when faced with a dilemma or a wicked problem is to not engage, you see. If you are trying to solve a wicked problem, one, you can't. That's why they're wicked problems. Two, every solution is as bad as the original problem. In multiple different ways that could be bad. Even if the solutions solve the problem you're looking at, they create more problems. And now you're right back looking for solutions again. And the nature of a wicked problem is that this cycle just continues. And you may even eventually come right back around to your original problem. You may have accomplished nothing. You're right back at where you started because there is no solution. It has that kind of circular solution set. That the problem is actually embedded in the solution set. You come right back to your original problem. When people are confronted with dilemmas for which they are not professionally prepared, they don't engage. A triage doctor or a triage nurse has been professionally prepared to deal with dilemmas. This person comes in on a stretcher, there's blood everywhere. I have to evaluate this person. Can we save this person? Is this person on the death's door? Okay, that's a dilemma. You could make the wrong decision, whatever that means, right? You could make the wrong decision, but you're professionally trained to deal with. You have to engage. You can't just push this card on to some emergency room doctor or off to somebody else who has a little more time than you do. You're the triage physician. You're the triage staff. You're the triage nurse. It is your job, your task. You've been trained for this. This stretcher comes in. You are the decider. And if after this disaster passes, you need to go have drink yourself blind, or you need to go into therapy, or you need to, cry for 3 days, well, then that's what you do, because it was your responsibility to make the difficult decisions. You had to choose. That was your task. That was your job. You signed up for choices. You couldn't do this. You couldn't just say, lovely day. There's a body here. Okay, well, I don't deal with blood. I don't deal with dying people. Not my responsibility. You can't do that. You're professionally trained to engage. And once you engage, you have the tools you need through your training to make a choice. Most people, as regards climate change and global heating, do not have the training. They don't understand what's at stake. They don't understand the facts. They don't understand the science. They don't understand the data. They don't understand the charts. They don't understand the urgency. They don't understand what's happening to them. They don't understand how it interacts with them at all. They don't understand what's happening in the weather. They don't understand what's happening in the world. They don't get it. They don't understand any of it. They're like children, or they're like chimpanzees. They don't understand. They can't engage. Now, sometimes when I'm really frustrated, I say they're stupid. Ignorant might be more appropriate. But when I'm angry, I don't always say the appropriate thing. Okay, they're ignorant. Is that their fault? Well, no. These are complicated topics, people. Oh, and by the way, it's a wicked problem. My dear, my beloved, that is the challenge right there. This is a wicked problem. If this was not a wicked problem, the oil companies themselves would have offered a couple of solutions. It's just funding. Give it to NASA, give it to the National Weather Service. They'll crunch the numbers, they'll figure it out, and we'll apply a solution, and we'll be done, and we'll move on. We'll sell gas and oil and coal, and we'll all be happy, and everybody will have orgasms, and everybody will go on a cruise to Alaska, and it'll all be wonderful. But that wasn't the case, was it? No, we know now that was not the case. They didn't offer any solutions because they were all bad. And when James Hansen gave his testimony to Congress at the end of 1989, he didn't offer any solutions because there weren't any. And if there were, they were all bad. And he wanted to be a scientist. And so in some regards, being a scientist, he wanted to disengage from the solution set because they were all bad solutions, all bad. So what do we do? As a result, we're all on this trolley, and there's the track ahead called global heating. And somewhere up that track, and you can see it from here. I can see it from here. Let me tell you, I can see it from here. From where I'm sitting right now, I can see what's up ahead on the track. And it looks really bad. We're going over the Seneca Cliff. Yeah, the Seneca Cliff is a thing. I'll look it up. Seneca Cliff. We're going over the Seneca Cliff. And, oh, well, wait, there's a lever. Ha, wonderful. The last second we discovered the lever and we're going to pull the lever and clunk. Oh, there's a sidetrack, yay, golf clap, high fives. We're going to save ourselves from the Seneca Cliff. When we hit the sidetrack and we go down the sidetrack, and what do we see on the sidetrack? Oh my God. The death of 99% of the human species, starvation, a lack of arable land, uh, uh, migrations of refugees, political insurrections, constantly, all the time, constantly, political, military intrigues, and that's all on the sidetrack. And the sidetrack has a name, and this lever has a name. And the name of the lever, the only solution that actually exists to keep us from going over the Seneca Cliff all together, singing Kumbaya, the only solution that has any chance, and I don't know what the odds are, coin toss odds, 50-50, not good, not great odds, by the way, but the only thing that could save us from going over the Seneca Cliff singing Kumbaya is this lever. And this lever has a name, and there's a little tag on it, and it says, leave fossil fuels in the ground. That's the leave fossil fuels in the ground lever. And the sidetrack is life without fossil fuels. No coal, no oil, no natural gas. And if you've been on this channel more than a couple of times, then what you've heard me say is that I don't know how they turn the fossil fuels off. I don't know how they pull that figurative lever. And I don't know who does it or when. But I can tell you this much. With high certainty, with high confidence, I can tell you this much. On the day, or 72 hours after the day, very soon after the day, when they pull that lever, the lever that says no more fossil fuels, and they pull that lever and they take us off of the Seneca Cliff track and they put us on the side track that says no fossil fuels, I can tell you what happens within a few days of pulling that lever that says end all fossil fuels. Within a few days of that, choice, because that's what it is. It's a choice. It's a choice. You have to grab the lever, pull it, and leave all fossil fuels in the ground. That's a choice you got to make. And I can tell you what the world looks like 72 hours after you make that choice. You, whoever you are. After you make that choice, after you decide to do that, you, whoever you are out there, if you're listening to me, I know who you are. You're out there somewhere. And you have this choice. You can grab that lever and you can stop the fossil fuels. I know you can do it. You know you can do it. And you're going to have to choose to do that. Are you going to do it? Are you brave enough to do that? Because you know what I know. That within 72 hours of doing that, there will be no more driving, flying, movement of goods, movement of money, or jobs. You know that. I know that. We also know it's the only way to avoid going over the Seneca Cliff. You're going to have to pull the lever, the one that's marked in big letters, end of fossil fuels. You're going to have to pull that lever. And what does that lever do? Well, it stops the oil rigs from oiling, and it stops the coal mines from mining, and it stops the fracking rigs from fracking, and the pipelines dry up, and the oil tankers stop moving, and everything is done, and all the tanks start to drain, and all the service stations start to empty. And yeah, that's pulling the lever. Within 72 hours of that, no driving, no flying, no movement of goods, no movement of money, no jobs. 72 hours. I know that. And that's what that sidetrack is called. End of civilization. Let that sink in. Just let that sink in. Everybody knows it. I know it. Lots of people know it. It's the end of our world. It's the end of our world. We stop burning fossil fuels, it's over. 8,000 million people cannot be sustained on this planet without copious, endless, 24/7 consumption of fossil fuels. Global heating is a wicked problem. And it was a wicked problem in the 60s when people first stumbled over this. after they rediscovered the work of Svante Arrhenius and Fourier and a bunch of others who were saying, guys, wake up. And so someone looked at it and said, yeah, sure enough. And the choice was, do we stop burning the fossil fuels? And they had their hand on the lever. No, we don't do that. They could have done that because they are the oil companies, right? They are the Peabody Coals. They are the Total Energy. They are they knew how to stop it. They could have stopped it. Why would they do that? But it was a choice. It was a choice they had because they engaged. They looked at it. They didn't just walk by doing this, tweeting, twerking. Okay. They didn't do this. They looked at it because it's their business. They looked at it and they said, are there any solutions to this? No. Oh, there's one. Great. What's the solution? Oh, leave it in the ground. Oh, well, that sucks. So they did nothing. They chose to do nothing. You didn't choose because you didn't understand. They understood because they looked at it. Why did they look at it? Because it's their business to know. And they found a wicked problem. And the solution was to stop burning fossil fuels. And they chose. Okay? That's what they did. Not to stop. And our government that also knew in 1989, our government knew. And they chose. They had the chance to make a decision. And they chose not to stop burning fossil fuels. The rest of you, the other 99.99999% of the human population, didn't even know. And to this day remain sometimes accidentally ignorant, occasionally willfully ignorant. Because remember, if you are willfully ignorant, if you just don't look, you just don't engage, you only look over here and you only look down there and you don't see the thing happening right in front of you. If you don't engage, you don't have to choose. Now it's getting harder and harder to not engage as the problems become increasingly obvious. It gets harder and harder to not engage with the Seneca Cliff as you go over it, which we are in the process of doing. It's a slow motion train wreck, but it's still a train wreck, right? We can call it that. When the train becomes a train wreck, when you pass this threshold of wreckness that your train ride becomes a train wreck, okay, then we can say, now you see, we're in a train wreck. But it's a slow motion train wreck. So we got that working for us, right? As our slow motion train wreck unfolds as a train wreck, not a train ride, as a train wreck, it becomes increasingly difficult, you see, not to do this engage thing, right? When you are in the middle of a disaster, it's harder to be unengaged. And as soon as you are forced by the wreckage, meaning the fact that you are in a train wreck, not a train ride, when your train ride becomes a train wreck, then you are engaged. And it becomes more difficult to be in a non-choice frame of mind. You are in a choosing frame of mind because you are in a wreck. And you are forced to start making difficult choices. And do you have the training of a triage doctor or a triage nurse? And do you have the support of an entire triage staff who are knowledgeable and will support you emotionally and physically as you make difficult choices? Do you have all that going for you? Do you? No, you don't. You don't, do you? You know you don't. You know you don't. You're going to be out there by yourself, a lone monkey. You're going to be out there. All you've ever had to do was eat, shit, and have sex. That's all you've been asked to do. And now you have to make a difficult choice about your survival, the survival of your community, the survival of the species, and the survival of all the other species on the planet. You can say, well, you're wrong. That's not the case. We don't have to make that choice now. My job as a triage engineer and a triage scientist is to let you know you are in a disaster. You are fucking doomed. You're doomed, you stupid fuck. You're doomed. It's time to make a choice. You've got to choose. You can either, it's becoming increasingly obvious to you that you are doomed. All right? And you must now engage with your own doomage, your status of being a doomed person, of existing in a doomed community that is embedded in a global economic system that is driven by fossil fuels, which has driven us all to the edge of doom. It's doomage all the way down. Now, people being people, I've been dealing with people being people nearly my entire life. So I know what that looks like. People being people, they will insist on not engaging for as long as they can. It gives them it's not a solution to the wicked problem. It's just not engaging with it. The wicked problem is still there. It's not going away. In terms of global heating, it's physics. It's physics. It's Earth dynamic system. It's not going anywhere. This planet's not going anywhere. It's not changing its orbit. The sun isn't changing. The atmosphere isn't changing. Physics. I understand that's hard to comprehend without the proper training. That's why I'm the triage engineer and you're not, and that's fine. That's fine. That's not your fault. That's fine. It's nobody's fault. It's not my fault. It's not your fault. The fault would be mine if I was not on this video telling you that you're doomed, okay? That would be my fault. That would be me failing to engage. That would be me not reaching for the handle and pulling it in my personal life. So here I am. I'm doing my part. You understand me doing my part? That's why I'm here. I'm not here for any other reason, okay? I don't have any followers. I'm not trying to appeal to people. I'm not trying to get on Oprah. None of those things will ever happen to me, around me, including me. But I'm here doing my job as a triage engineer and scientist. And my first thing I have to do is illuminate you to the fact that you are doomed. You're doomed. Now, if you choose to just go ahead and fail to engage, it's not even a decision. Failing to engage is just really just averting your attention. Seeking distractions. Just doing this. Walking down the sidewalk, doing this. Looking up, I don't see any drug abusers. I don't see any homeless people. I don't see any women being dragged into buildings to be mistreated. I don't see any little urchin children begging for food and money. I don't see any of those things. I'm looking up in the sky and I'm not engaging. Okay, you could do that. It's going to become increasingly difficult for you to stay unengaged. You see, it's going to become difficult to remain unengaged. In fact, because you are embedded in an Earth dynamic system that is driven by the laws of fucking physics, let's just get that out there, okay? Because you are embedded in an Earth dynamic system driven by the laws of physics, you are not going to escape being engaged. You are on this train. You are going to go over that Seneca cliff. You may like it. You may hate it. You may never understand it, but that's where you're going to be because you are on this train along with everybody else, including the elephants and the giraffes and the zebras and the platypi. Okay. We are all going over the Seneca cliff. Unless somebody finds the solution. It's that lever. We didn't know what it was for, but now suddenly there's a label on it. It says, and in case of emergency, pull. In case of emergency, well, we're definitely in an emergency. I'm going to pull this lever. And then you find out, oh, wait, this lever looks like abandoning fossil fuels. Wow. Okay. But it says in case of emergency, pull the lever. And if I go straight, I go over the Seneca Cliff with all the other animals and the plants and everything else. And so that sounds pretty bad, actually. And I have to pull this lever that says, abandon all fossil fuels, ye who enter in by me. And so you're thinking, I could do that. It says you do it in an emergency. Am I in an emergency? Maybe I'm in an emergency. Fuck, it feels like I'm in an emergency right now. I don't know why. I just woke up this morning. I think maybe I'm in an emergency. Here's this lever. Pull in case of emergency. Okay, I'll pull it. 72 hours later, no driving, no flying, no movement of goods, no movement of money, no jobs. Okay, somebody pulled the lever. Who was it? I don't know. I wasn't there. Somebody decided it was an emergency. Someone decided now's the time. How did they pull the lever? I don't know. Maybe it's 4,000 levers. Maybe it requires war and assassinations and collapse of the global economy and all kinds of crises all piling up. And over the period of a week or 2 or 3, levers are being pulled left and right and center. Pull this lever, pull that lever. It says in case of emergency, pull the lever. Okay. In case of nuclear war, pull the lever. I'm pulling it. In case of droughts and floods and famines, pull the lever. I got a bunch of levers to pull. I'm pulling them all. Okay. And everyone's doing their thing. They're all choosing. They're engaged. They got engaged. They're engaged with this fucking problem, and they're looking around for any kind of a solution at all. They're engaged. They're frightened. They're terrified. Seneca Cliff. Everybody's going over it together, holding hands, singing Kumbaya. Well, not for me. I'm not. I see a lever here that says in case of emergency, pull. And I'm pulling that fucker. That's how it works. Now, this is a wicked problem. You're going to pull the lever at the last possible minute. Someone's going to pull the lever at the last possible minute on our behalf. A bunch of people in a bunch of places who aren't even working together, all are looking at a lever, that works for them, whatever they're supposed to do, that says in case of emergency, pull. And so they're all feeling right now like the same thing, that there's an emergency, whatever it is. A war in Gaza, war in Ukraine, food insecurity, whatever it is. Immigration problems, huge numbers of people swarming over the planet looking for food, clothing, and shelter, whatever the emergency is. And they got this lever that says pull in case of emergency. So they pull the lever. And what that is abandon fossil fuels. Because the one problem you have that causes all these other problems, that causes the food insecurity, that causes all these wars, that causes all this political unrest, that causes all the droughts and the heat waves and the storms and the cyclones and everything else, is fossil fuels. We're changing the Earth dynamic system, and those changes, which are physics driven by physical processes, are spilling over into how we behave on the planet as a species, as communities, as individuals, as governments. Our behavior is now being driven by the Earth dynamic system. Our behaviors are being driven by this. Like a bunch of chimps, a troop of chimps that finds themselves on the edge of a forest that's on fire, or that finds themselves in a forest where the trees are being knocked down by a cyclone that they can't even comprehend. They're like a troop of chimps that found themselves stuck in the open during a lightning storm, and there's lightning crashing down and hitting trees and hitting people, and hitting all these things, and they don't know what to do. Don't understand it. Couldn't engage with it before. All I know is that it's an emergency. Got to do something. Well, in this case, because it's global heating, it's driving all these problems. The only thing you can do is stop burning fossil fuels. That's the only thing you can do. Global heating is caused by enhancements to the greenhouse effect. The enhancements to the greenhouse effect are caused by excess CO2 and methane emissions and other things in the atmosphere. And it's really complicated. It's more complicated than that, actually. But that is the one thing we can do, is we can deal with the methane and the CO2 emissions. So how do we do that? Well, we have to leave the fossil fuels in the ground, because that's where the CO2 and methane emissions come from. The oil, the coal, and the natural gas. You have to leave it in the ground. So how do you leave it in the ground? Well, they're all driven by electricity and labor, but for the most part. So you turn off the oil well pumps, and you turn off the fracking pumps, and you turn off the pipeline pumps, and you turn off the refineries, and you keep the oil tankers in the port, and you don't load them with the oil, and you turn off all the equipment that loads the tankers with the oil, and you turn off the tankers. Okay, you just turn it off. Click, 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 click. You just go right down the register. Hit every switch. Off, 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 off. You turn them off. Now, there's no one person who can do that, but there's a group of people who all know each other. They all know each other. And they can do that. Oh, yeah, they can do that. Now, they may want to hide their crime behind other distractions, like, we have a little global war, a little global economic collapse, a little global unrest, a little global food crisis. We could just, we could hide behind these things and say, well, now that there's a global war, we can't transport oil around the world, so we'll turn those switches off. And look, now since there's global climate disruptions and food insecurity, we can't ship food out of our country. We're happy to have any food we've got, so we'll just turn those export switches off. And then there's some other things, and because there's so much unrest, we're going to close our borders and we'll just turn off those switches. Okay, and people stop moving, goods stop moving, the economy starts to grind down. Pretty soon people are losing their jobs because the businesses are going out of business, and there's hyperinflation, and then there's no money, and people suddenly are worried about their food, clothing, and shelter, and there's all this insecurity and all this unrest, and they're rioting in the downtowns, and they're storming the capitals, and they're setting fire to anything in their way, and they're just angry and terrified, and justifiably so. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It was either turn off the fossil fuels or go over the Seneca Cliff altogether, holding hands and singing Kumbaya, praying to God to save the righteous. Because that's what everybody thinks they are. Everyone thinks they're the righteous. Everyone thinks they are going to go to heaven. Okay, so they don't mind going over the cliff if they think they're going to go to heaven. All the rest of us, we're the ones that are going to be picking shit with the chickens at the bottom of the cliff if we survive. Okay? Or we cut off the fossil fuels, and then we all have to cope with no fossil fuels. And that's going to suck. That's going to really suck. That's going to really hurt. That's going to be embarrassing. It's going to be mortifying. It's going to be terrifying. It's going to be everything you can imagine. Everything. Destabilizing, all of it. Turning off the fossil fuels is the end of just about everything. Really, I've said this many times in my videos. Everything, I'll say it again, just for dramatic impact at this particular juncture. We're going to have to turn off the fossil fuels. It's going to be an emergency act. We're going to reach the lever, and it says, in case of emergency pull, and we're going to say, okay, and we're going to pull that sucker, and it's going to run us on this other sidetrack. And we won't go over the Seneca Cliff singing Kumbaya. No, we're going to take action. Action! We are G.I. Joe action figure. We're going to take action for whatever, democracy or the economy or the whatever, okay? For the unborn gay whales, we're going to take action. It's going to put us on this sidetrack, and that sidetrack is no more fossil fuels for you. All right? No more fossil fuels for you. And you're going to have to deal with it. And it's possible that 90% of the human species will die because of that action. It's entirely possible. Without driving and flying and movement of goods, which means food, okay, medicine, a bunch of other things. No movement of money and no jobs. No jobs. Okay? The global economy is gone. How do you get anything? Who's going to bring the food from the food production places that are hundreds, if not thousands of miles away? Who's going to bother getting into a truck and driving food across the country for a bunch of people that don't even know? Who's going to do that? Nobody. Nobody's going to do that. So it doesn't happen. And pretty soon, everyone's running around trying to find their food, clothing, and shelter, and they're wondering what happened. Well, what happened was we made a choice. What happened was we didn't go over the Seneca Cliff. And you can feel grateful for that if you want to. But if you never knew that was out there, then all you know is that you have a grievance. Somebody fucked up. Some of those globalists were lizard people. They did something to us, and they pulled that switch. Now I can't get my oil and my diesel for my truck, and I can't go down to the Costco to buy my case of Cheetos. That's all I know. I didn't know there was a Seneca Cliff. I didn't know we're all going to go over the cliff and be dashed to pieces on the rocks. I didn't know that. All I know is that I can't afford diesel anymore, and I can't get to Costco. When I got to Costco on a horse, there was nothing on the shelves. I don't want to know who I have to hang. I want to know who's responsible. What communist is responsible for this? What happened to our great country? Now there's no Cheetos at the Costco. Okay, that's how it's going to feel to people. And if that sounds stupid, that's because people are stupid. I'm sorry. ignorant. And it's not their fault. It's not their fault that they're ignorant. It's not their fault that they don't understand the laws of physics. It's not their fault that they didn't know there even was an Earth dynamic system. That's not their fault. And I wouldn't fault them that any more than I would fault a bunch of chimps who don't understand why their forest is on fire and running all directions and trying to avoid the fire and complaining about the fire and wanting to know who to blame for the fire. It's just, guys, you're living in a forest. Forests burn, okay? It's the physics. It's just entropy. Just deal with it, and try to survive. That's a good one. Try to survive. So yeah, I woke up this morning and I was a little bit frustrated. And finally, after talking about triage on this channel for like the last 2 weeks, it finally dawned on me. People aren't ready. Doing triage, making difficult choices requires training and diversion. And maybe you need a fifth of vodka. I don't know what you need, but difficult choices is hard. Nobody wants to do it. The oil companies could have done it. Congress could have done it. Anytime in the last 20 years when we knew really what we were up against and when we really understood finally what the challenges were, anybody could have done it, and they didn't, because it's just so damned painful. We've been disengaged. And that's not a choice. That's just not engaging. And it's easy. Oh, yeah. See no evil, speak no evil, right? I didn't see it. No one explained it to me. When they explained it to me, they used big words and figures and math, and I couldn't wrap my head around it. Is that your fault? Is that anybody's fault? They couldn't wrap their head around the fucking Earth dynamic system? Yeah, I'm a little bit special that way. It's probably special in all the ways that we use the word special. Yeah, I'm special. I can understand abstract concepts like that. I can drag myself into multidimensional systems. I can drag myself deep into numbers and charts and figures. I understand the language of science. I can speak it. I listen to people all the time. When I'm listening to them, sometimes I hear them say, "We are so fucked." Not in as many words. Not exactly. But as I'm listening to their words and I'm seeing what they're saying and I'm interpreting it correctly and I'm looking at the charts and I'm looking at the line go up. And they complain that we don't know how to explain this. We don't know where this is going. We don't have enough data. And they're saying all the sciencey things and make people's eyes glaze over. But what I hear is a plaintive cry. It's bad. It's really bad. I can't say that in a scientific paper, but it's really bad. I wish there was words. I wish I knew how to say how bad it is. I wish I understood the English language better than I do to say how bad this is. And Dr. Jason Box, standing on the ice shield on Greenland, said, yeah, we're basically fucked. James Hansen, in his latest paper, practically in as many words, it's almost there. It made me laugh when I heard about what he was saying. Yeah, we're kind of fucked, people. It's starting to come out. They're starting to say it. We just don't have the words. You're doomed. You're fucking doomed. We have to stop burning fossil fuels. Is there any other way to say this? I comprehend the problem. I understand the system in question. I understand the inputs and the outputs. I see where they're heading. I'm watching the news. I'm watching the weather in particular. We're embedded in this thing. We're embedded like chimps in a forest. We are embedded in this thing. And it's coming to pieces. It's on fire. And I'm that chimp who's telling you, yeah, We're embedded in this thing, and this bitch is on fire. We are fucking doomed, my dear dudes and dudettes. We need to get out of here. No, I don't know which way to run. I don't know where to hide. There may not be a place to hide. There may not even be a place to run. What if we're surrounded? What if there's fire coming from all directions? What if it's all going to burn with us at the center? What if that's the answer? What if that's the reality? Yeah, I guess we're kind of fucking doomed, aren't we? Now, our situation may not be that bad. It may be that bad. It may be that there is no sidetrack, and it may be that there is no lever marked pull in case of emergency. It may be that it's just not there. How could that be the case? There may not be any way to turn off fossil fuels. I don't know. There may not be any way to turn off fossil fuels. Wow. Oh, there's a thought. God damn. Whoo. Oh, what if there's no way to even do that? What if it can't be done? Yeah, what do you do in that case? Wow. What if there's no way to turn off fossil fuels? Okay. Okay. I don't even want to think about that. I don't even want to think about that. That's my limitation. Okay, I just hit my limit, folks. It's official. I just hit my limit. There's a thought I can't entertain. There's a place I can't go. I just discovered it. It's official. I got limits. There are places I can't go. And the place I can't go, the place I will not go. What if it's true that we can't turn off the fossil fuels? It's just a bunch of machines. We built the machines. We hooked them up to the grid. We turned them on. We watched the products flowing out. We distributed it. We put a price on it. There's markets to trade this stuff. We built this whole thing. Over 300 years. We built this whole thing. We should be able to turn it off, right? I mean, that's all I got. That's all I got is that we should be able to turn this off. What if that's not true? Wow. What if that's not true? Oh boy. Fuck me. I don't know what to say. I just don't know what to say. Well, you better hope and pray that there's a way to turn this shit off. You better fall on your knees. If you're religious, you better fall on your knees and pray to whatever God dominates your thoughts. Fall on your knees and pray to God that there is some way to turn this off. My go-to reference is the Titanic. What if I'm sitting on the bow of the Titanic? And maybe that's even my job. Stand on the bow of the Titanic with the binoculars, right? And look for the icebergs. It must be out there somewhere, right? And that's my job. And I've got a radio or something, and the helmsman is up there in the top, and he's looking too, but mostly he's looking at me because I'm the one with the binoculars. I'm the one at the front of the boat, and I'm looking with my binoculars, and I see the iceberg. I snatch up my radio. See, I'm assuming this is how it is. I'm assuming. Here I am. You know, the triage engineer, the triage scientist. I'm assuming that there's a microphone I can snatch up, and I can tell the helmsman, hard to port, iceberg ahead, hard to port. Or I can tell the helmsman, hard to starboard, give it all you got, full reverse. You know, they got a iceberg dead ahead, full to port, reverse, full reverse. I'm on the radio and I'm talking to the helmsman, and he's listening because that's his job. My job is to be on that microphone. I had the binoculars, I got the microphone, and I'm on the microphone. I'm telling the helmsman, hard to port, full reverse. See, I'm kind of assuming that that's our situation, that we could do that. I'm kind of assuming that we could grab the lever, the hard to port lever, the hard reverse lever, the leave it in the ground lever. And I know what happens when we pull the lever. You know, there's no flying, there's no driving, there's no movement of goods, there's no movement of money, there's no jobs. I know what happens. I get that part. But into my thinking, it's preferable to hitting the iceberg and sinking. But what if there is no lever? What if it doesn't matter that I've got the binoculars and I've got the training and I know what to, and I have the microphone and I can radio the helmsman, and his job is to listen for me to say something. And the captain is right there. Yes, make it so. The captain is right there. Make it so. And I'm assuming, as a triage engineer and a triage scientist, that all of that is wired up. At some point, somebody can say, look, wow, that's bad. We don't want to hit that. And on the microphone, hard to port, full reverse. And people are going to fall on their asses when we hit this ship in full reverse. They're going to fall to the side when we go hard to port. Okay, it's going to be terrible. They're going to drop their drinks. They're going to hit their head. They're going to have injuries. And I'm the guy on the front who has to make that decision. You know, there's the iceberg on the radio, hard to port. You know, the helmsman's up there. He's listening. That's his job. The captain's like, make it so. And everything's wired up. And they're going to pull that lever, and it's going hard to port. It's going to go hard to starboard. It's going to full reverse. What if it doesn't work? What if I don't see the iceberg correctly? What if the radio doesn't work? What if I'm yelling into this radio and he's up there and he's, you know, maybe he's playing cards with the captain. Maybe they're playing poker and the system doesn't work and we can't pull the lever. What if we can't pull the lever? Maybe there is no lever and there's no way to turn this off. I'm assuming there's a way to turn this off. What if there isn't? Fuck me. What if there isn't? Have you got any idea how bad that is? If there isn't a way to turn this off, we built this machine. You'd think we could turn it off. What if we cannot? I don't know. I just don't know. Things you can do. Wean yourself off of fossil fuels. Learn how not to drive and learn how not to fly. Why? Not because you're going to save the world from global heating and climate change, but because if they ever find that lever that's labeled in an emergency pull, and then they pull it, then that means that within 72 hours or so, there's not going to be any fossil fuels. Now, if your life is completely 100% dependent on fossil fuels, then you're, as we like to say in the field, you are fucked, okay? Now, if you're less dependent on fossil fuels, meaning you have a walkable neighborhood, there's services in all directions, you work fairly close to where you live, you can ride a bicycle to work if you need to, maybe there's mass transit, maybe the mass transit will keep going when the fossil fuels are cut off. Hey, maybe it's electric, maybe the electricity doesn't go away right away, right? Because we have electricity from lots of sources, hydroelectric, nuclear, solar, wind. Okay, so maybe there's enough electricity to run the electric buses. And so you have an electric bus in your neighborhood or electric train, and they can take you to your place of work. And you've made all these adjustments in anticipation of the day when someone pulls the lever marked in case of emergency, and they pull that and the fossil fuels get cut off and you're okay-ish. You're okay-ish. Other things you could do is be where you need to be with who you need to be with. So if your family is far flung and that sounds bad to you, okay, then you may, and you know on the day when they turn it off that you want to be with your loved ones, you want them nearby so you can care for them and they can care for you, right? Works both ways. Then you may want to solve that problem for yourself. Do it now while there's no emergency, and there's lots of ways to solve the problem. Solve that problem of getting your people where you are or getting yourself to where they are. Don't have all the people who matter to you, for whom you will have heartache if you can't get to them. Make sure they are nearby. You could do that. That is human scale. You could actually solve that. Oh, it's annoying. Oh, it's interrupting my life. It's going to be disruptive. Grandma doesn't want to move. My kids want to go to a college that's half a planet away, and I want my job 40 miles away, and my husband or wife has the job another 40 miles the other direction. That's why we have 3 cars, and they're all running on fossil fuels, and our life is wonderful, and we all come together for meals, and once twice a year we go see grandma in Wisconsin, and okay, it all works, and I like it the way it is, and okay, that's just not engaging. That's not engaging. So you could just not engage. That's fine. Most people will do that. You can do that. Okay. That's you in your personal life not engaging, or you can engage. And as soon as you engage, you make choices. That's what happens when you engage with the problem. You start making choices. That's what you sign up for. You make choices. Will you do that? You could do that. You don't need to wait for a treaty with China to eliminate fossil fuel consumption or whatever. You don't have to wait for scientists to discover a miracle cure for carbon emissions and the heating of the environment. You don't have to wait for another COP 28 or 29 or 30 or 31 or XDX. You don't have to wait for another IPCC report. You can just do these things right now in your life. You could plant a garden in your backyard. You could do that right now. It'd be great. You'd save money, you have better food to eat, and not to put too fine a point on this, you'd have food to eat. There you go. Maybe that's not why you do it, but you did it. See, you did something. You engaged with the problem, and that forced you to make a choice. And the choice was to pull up your backyard and get rid of the ornamental bushes and to plant food, to bring in beds and to bring in everything you have to bring in to have a garden and irrigation and all that, and to plant the seeds, pull the weeds, manage the food in your backyard. And you did it for other reasons, not to save the planet from climate change, but other reasons, perfectly valid reasons. And then one day there was no driving and no flying and no movement of goods and no movement of money, no jobs. But you had a backyard full of fucking food. How did that happen? I wonder. You could do that. That is within scale for you. You can't turn this ship around. You can't reach the helmsman. You can't order it hard to port, but you can plant a garden in your backyard. Other things you can do is you can encourage your neighbors to do the same thing. You could even go to a city council member a meeting or a county meeting, and you could tell them, look, we have a global crisis on our hands, and when you're in a crisis, you treat it like a crisis. And we're going to have to eventually leave fossil fuels in the ground. And in anticipation of that, it would be really helpful if the cities and the county helped us adapt and prepare for the day when there's no fossil fuels in the ground. And besides which, it's good to have a garden. Help us do this. Lower our water rates. Bring back the Master Gardener program. Bring back the Grange. Bring back urban farming. Have demonstration projects, set them up, get them working, engage with corporations, get them to support us. We're trying to make ourselves more resilient here. It's human scale. We do it 1 yard at a time. And some people will be early adopters and some people will think it's communism and they'll never want to do it. But hey, do what we can do. Okay. You get some help. You can work with your neighbors and help your neighbors, have them help you. Okay. Mutual aid. These are things we could do. Not to save the planet, not to save the world, not to save civilization, not to save the unborn gay whales. We do this for our own reasons. It's within scale for us to do that. And it's a choice we can make. Once we engage and we start looking for options, that's a choice we can make. That's a lever we can pull in our individual life. Stop driving so much. Stop flying. Don't be so dependent on getting places where you don't need to be. Don't seek entertainment at the expense of all else, and start dealing with your food, clothing, and shelter. Just very casually. Just start very quietly, doing these things, figuring it out, educating yourself, getting the tools you need, seeds, soil, whatever else you have to have, prepare your backyard, prepare your front yard, work with your neighbors, do all this stuff very quietly, just doing this. And on the day when there is very suddenly, no movement of goods, no driving, no flying. What are we going to do? Okay. Well, then you're going to be like, yeah, that really sucks. But excuse me, I have to go pull some weeds in my backyard garden. It's not a solution. You're not going to feed yourself that way. I didn't say you were going to feed yourself that way. I never claimed that. I never claimed that your eighth of an acre is going to collect enough sunlight 365 days a year to provide calories for you and your family. I'd never said that. I said it's something you can do. We're going to need more than that. We're going to need a lot more than that. We're going to need to completely rejigger everything we're doing at the county and city level. It's a long list. It's really a long list. I don't even want to get into it. And there's no sense in me getting into it because I'm not a decision maker in this. I have no power to make any of this happen. But yeah, it's a long list. And someone up above, the mayor, the county superintendents, whoever it is going to have to engage, stop looking away, engage, and choose. And the choice will have to be, something around the notion that we're going to have to end fossil fuel consumption. Now, no one wants to think about that. No one wants to deal with that. No one wants to be blamed for that happening. Nobody wants to create the environment where they're suddenly within 72 hours, what happened? There's no driving, there's no flying, there's no goods moving, there's no money. Everyone's lost their job. Is that my fault? Did I do that? Who did that? We have to hang them. We have to burn them at the stake. Whoever it wasn't me. Okay. Yeah. But are they willing to engage? I doubt it. But, and we got to watch this one. This is where you being engaged, even if you're kind of powerless in the big picture, you're not powerless in your life. Okay. But maybe if you are powerless in the big picture, where does the food come? Where's the food on the shelves at the store come from? Where does the water come from? Where's your electricity come from? You're kind of powerless with these things. You just turn the tap on and the water comes out. It's like, that's pretty convenient. Okay. And so maybe you fill up a jug with water just in case one day that you open the tap and nothing comes out. So you did a little something for yourself, but really on the whole, you're kind of powerless about where the tap water comes from or the quality of that tap water, right? Is it actually drinkable? Is it potable? So we need them to engage. And when the rubber meets the road, or when our lives obviously and undeniably become a train wreck, then we need our leadership to be there to help us with the bigger things, right? The healthcare system, the education system, the grid electric, the water distribution, the sewer distribution, okay? We need them to be on board for the big things. Whatever that means, I don't know. Can they do it? And can we actually shut off the fossil fuels? Wow, we got to think about that. What if we can't? Well, then I guess if we can't shut off the fossil fuels, and I'll end with this, then it's going to be a big party, just like it is right now. Such as it is, it's not that great of a party. Okay, let's just face it, it's not that great. Life right now is not that great. But whatever it is, but trust me, it's better than when you finally go over the cliff and we're all extinct. All right. So this is a relative party compared to that. This is also a relative party in a different way compared to life without fossil fuels. That's not going to be a party. I think it could become a beautiful thing. I think that the world that we could create without fossil fuels would be more human scale, more humane in general. I think that world would meet the needs of children and elders more effectively. It'll create more community, which meets pretty much everyone's mental health requirements. It will focus us more on immediate survival, but that doesn't have to be a desperate thing. That doesn't have to be, cannibalism, Lord of the Flies, and all that. Being focused on survival can be very healthy. You're a gardener now, and you want your garden to succeed, and you don't want your garden to fail. And so you're out there and you're pulling weeds, and you're fertilizing, and you're managing the plants, and you're planning what your next set of plants are going to be, and you're working with your neighbors, and they're exchanging seeds, and you're focused on your gardening, right? But it's providing you with food. It's not a desperate thing. It's not desperate. It doesn't have to be. I mean, it could be, right? And we're hoping it isn't, but it's less likely to be a disaster, a food disaster, and a crisis and starvation if we do some work right now, right? Right. Building capacity, building knowledge, not being quite so ignorant about how things happen. Like, where does your electricity come from? Where's your food come from? You would be in command of some small part of your food supply. Not all of it by any means. Maybe not even a significant fraction of it. But at least you have a narrative that you did something for yourself. You can do things for yourself. You can help do things for your community. You can work with your community to do things for each other. These are very common tropes in civilization. We readily circle the wagons when we are confronted with an emergency. We readily abandon our frivolities and our distractions when we are confronted with an emergency. When the emergency ends, maybe we go back to those. But this emergency, the global heating emergency, doesn't end. It does not end. I have to be very clear on this. Using words. It does not end. It may never end. This is an emergency in relative terms for people who have never known such a thing, which is all of us, which is really humanity for like the last 4,000 years. This is an emergency that, in relative terms, could be eternal, forever. Wow. And the emergency, probably the best emergency, the best outcome of all the bad outcomes, the best outcome is no fossil fuels. We just turn them off. That's the best outcome. That really is the best outcome conceivable. From where I'm sitting as the triage scientist, the best possible outcome is that we turn off the fossil fuels and then we just cope. We just deal with it. Deal with it, fucker. We turn them off. It's done. Sorry. Yeah. Don't complain to me about it. Now we're focusing for a while. It'll be a little bit desperate, and mostly it's just confusing, right? And there's bitterness, and there's enmity, and there's selfishness, and there's greed, and there's narcissism, and all these things bubble to the surface of the human condition when there's an emergency and when someone takes away your shiny thing or takes away your privileges, okay? And everyone's going to be angry, and they're going to storm the Capitol, and they're going to fire their guns into the air, and all this kind of, and then they'll get over it, right? Then they'll get over it, and they'll say, well, having a fit and a tantrum didn't change the situation. Well, gosh. Now what do I do? Well, there should be someone in the community who's what? Starting a garden? Starting a food co-op? Starting a farmer's market? Starting a dry goods store? Starting a blacksmith shop? Starting a carpenter's workshop? Starting a daycare right next door? Starting, a village? Oh, there's a thought. Starting a village. And you all circle your wagons and you stop firing your AR-15 into the air in frustration. You stop storming the Capitol and looking for people to hang and burn at the stake, and you just give up on all that and you go home and you just start your village. That's the best case scenario. I got nothing else. I got nothing for you. That's the best case scenario. That we choose to turn off the fossil fuels, and then we cope. And honestly, it could be really nice. It could be really nice. It could be the answer to all our other perceived problems. It really could be. And I'm not Dr. Pangloss wearing my rose-colored glasses. I'm just saying, strictly as an engineer, strictly as a scientist, turning off the fossil fuels could be the best thing that ever happened to you. I'm talking about you. And maybe by extension, all of us. Turning off the fossil fuels could be the best thing to happen to all of us. Just turn them off. We're in an emergency, and there's a lever that says in case of emergency. And so we pulled it. Okay, well, we did the thing. We chose to do the thing. And, okay, it's difficult for a couple of days or a couple of months, and then all the crazies get their crazy out, and all the malcontents head for the woods and live in a cabin with their AR-15 and their dog and their MREs, and okay, all that gets sorted out. Fine. Everyone found their place where they belong, and now the rest of us are just going to reinvent village life as best we can, and that could be great. So that's my thinking right now. That's my thinking. I don't know if we're going to pull the lever. We might go over the cliff. It's the default. It's what happens when you don't engage and people don't want to engage. It could be that we turn off the fossil fuels somehow, or nature turns them off for us somehow. We got too hot. It got too much rain, too many storms, too much disruption, too much food insecurity, and we just couldn't run the machine anymore, right? The machine we built over 150, 200 years, we just couldn't manage it anymore. It just shut itself down for lack of solutions. That could happen too. And when that happens and there's no more fossil fuels and we all throw a fit and have a tantrum and kill all of our neighbors and kill each other and kill ourselves and Lord of the Flies and the whole thing, well, then we settle down, and with whoever's left, whoever you're with, whatever you managed to salvage, whatever salvaged you, right? Maybe someone saved you. Maybe you saved someone else. Maybe you're standing there huddled together trying to figure it out. Well, that's the beginnings, right? That's the beginnings. That's how it begins. It doesn't end there necessarily. That's where it begins. That's not a bad thing. I think that could be pretty cool. Crack up, boom. Anyway, I'll stop there. I got a lot of things to deal with. But after these little talks we have, I feel more motivated. So I canceled all my YouTube subscriptions today. I think that means something. We'll see.